Welcome to Cheater's Diary. Let's get started on today. Story. A man's greatest joy is to love, and to be loved in return. But what happens when the love you build your entire world upon turns out to be the greatest deception of all? David was a man of principle, a man of faith. He lived his life with conviction, believing in honesty, loyalty, and the sacred bond of marriage. At 32, he had achieved success beyond what he ever imagined. His business thrived, his wealth grew, and his reputation was untarnished. But there was one thing he valued above all else: purity. He had waited. Through temptation, through doubt, through years of loneliness, he had waited for the right woman, for the perfect woman, for the one whom God had destined for him. And then there was Sophia. She was everything he had prayed for, a woman of grace, of kindness, of virtue. She spoke with gentleness, carried herself with dignity, and believed just as he did, that love was meant to be sacred. She, too, had saved herself for marriage, a rare and beautiful commitment in a world where such values were fading. Their love was pure, untouched by scandal or sin. When David proposed, the world watched in awe. Two souls, untainted by betrayal, unshaken by doubt, coming together in a covenant of eternal love. And what a wedding it was. A grand ceremony, the kind spoken about for years. Beneath the golden glow of a setting sun, in the presence of hundreds, they vowed to be faithful, to be true, to love, and to cherish. Sophia, dressed in an angelic white gown, stood before David, her eyes shimmering with devotion. He looked at her and saw everything he had ever wanted: his partner, his best friend, his future. Their first year together was a dream. Every morning, David woke to the warmth of her love. Every night, he held her in his arms, knowing he had found something rare, something precious. They spoke in whispers of forever, of children, of growing old together. And then one day, the news came. Sophia was pregnant. David could hardly contain his joy. His dream of a perfect family was finally coming true. He kissed her forehead, held her tightly, and whispered promises of an even greater future. They planned. They prepared. They imagined the laughter of their child filling their home, the little footsteps running across the floor, the echo of love passed down to the next generation. It was meant to be the happiest chapter of their lives. But fate is cruel, destiny is unpredictable, and the love story that seemed so perfect was about to take a dark and twisted turn. For 9 long months, David waited with anticipation. Every ultrasound, every soft flutter of life within Sophia's belly filled him with a love he never knew he could possess. He read parenting books, built the crib with his own hands, and whispered prayers over his unborn son every night. This child was not just a part of him. He was his legacy, his proof that love, patience, and faithfulness had been worth it. And then the day arrived. A scream, a rush to the hospital, hours of pain and endurance, and finally, the softest cry filled the room. Ethan was born. David's hands trembled as he held his son for the first time. tiny fingers wrapped around his own, an unspoken bond forming in that very moment. Tears streamed down his face as he kissed the forehead of his perfect boy, his son, his flesh and blood, the greatest blessing of his life. The days that followed were filled with joy. David took endless pictures, sang lullabies to Ethan at night, and promised Sophia he would be the best father possible. Every smile from Ethan, every gurgle of laughter deepened his devotion. He was the happiest he had ever been, until the day everything shattered. It started as a simple medical emergency, one of those moments that shakes parents to their core but ultimately ends with relief. Ethan had fallen severely ill, feverish, weak, his tiny body struggling to fight. The doctors diagnosed him quickly. He needed an urgent blood transfusion. Without hesitation, David volunteered. "Take my blood," he told the doctors. "Save my son." Routine, simple, but the moment the doctor returned, David saw something in his eyes, something he couldn't quite understand. A hesitation, a tension. Then came the words that sent an icy chill through his veins. "I'm sorry, sir, but your blood type isn't a match." David blinked. "That's not possible. I'm his father." The doctor exchanged a look with the nurse before gently shaking his head. "Biologically, sir, you're not." Silence. The kind that stretches across eternity. The kind that feels like drowning. David tried to make sense of it. A mistake. A mix-up. But the doctors were certain. The science was undeniable. Confusion turned to unease. Unease turned to something darker. A whisper in his mind that he didn't want to hear. A possibility he refused to consider. Desperate for reassurance, he took a DNA test. Not out of suspicion, not out of mistrust, just curiosity. The results arrived days later. A plain envelope. A simple document. Just a few words. If you're enjoying this story, kindly hit the like button, share and subscribe for more. David, you are not the father. His heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat. The room spun around him, collapsing into an abyss of doubt and disbelief. His hands trembled as he reread the words, hoping, praying that he had misunderstood. But the truth stared back at him, cold, merciless, final. Shock, confusion, a rage so deep it burned through his veins. His world, once so perfect, was crumbling beneath his feet. He confronted Sophia that night, his voice shaking, his hands clenched into fists. "Explain this to me," he demanded, holding up the DNA results. "Tell me how this is possible." Sophia's face drained of color. She looked at him, then at the paper, her lips parting but no words coming out. Tears welled in her eyes as she shook her head violently. No, David. I don't understand. I don't know how." "Who is he?" David roared, his voice echoing through the walls. "Who did you betray me with?" Sophia sobbed, falling to her knees. "I swear to you, David, I never cheated. I have only been with you. You are the only man I've ever loved." Lies. More lies. Or was it? David's mind raced, torn between believing the woman he had trusted with his life and the damning evidence that screamed otherwise. How could this be possible? Unless unless there was something darker at play. David became a man obsessed. Sleep eluded him. His once thriving business suffered. Friends noticed his decline, but no one could understand the storm raging inside him. He needed answers, answers that Sophia couldn't provide. Determined, he hired a private investigator. If his wife was lying, he would find out. If there was another man in the picture, he would expose him. And if Sophia had betrayed him, he would make sure she paid. Days turned into weeks. Every detail of Sophia's past was scrutinized. Her college years, her friendships, even her childhood memories. But the investigator kept coming back with the same conclusion. There was no evidence of an affair, no secret lover, no hidden life. Sophia was exactly who she claimed to be, a devoted wife, a woman of faith, a mother who had never strayed. Yet, the DNA results did not lie. The contradiction was maddening. Then, the real breakthrough came. One night, the investigator called David with a revelation that made his blood run cold. "David," the voice was tense, cautious. "I found something, but you might want to sit down for this." David's pulse pounded in his ears as he listened. Years ago, while pregnant, Sophia had undergone what was supposed to be a routine hospital checkup, but something had gone horribly wrong. Records revealed a disturbing truth. She had unknowingly been part of a secret fertility experiment. Without her consent, without her knowledge, she had been impregnated with another man's sperm. The hospital had covered it up. The doctors had kept it hidden. And now, the truth had unraveled everything David and Sophia had ever known. This was not betrayal. This was a crime. David's rage turned to horror. The woman he had doubted, the wife he had accused, she had been a victim all along. And so had he. When he confronted Sophia, her reaction was raw, gut-wrenching. She collapsed into his arms, shaking with grief. "I didn't know. David, I swear to you, I didn't know." The weight of it all crashed down on them. Their love had been tested, broken and bruised. But now, they faced something even greater. Could they survive this together? David wrestled with emotions he couldn't name. Could he raise Ethan as his own, knowing the child was the result of a horrifying mistake? Could he look at his son, his beautiful, innocent son, and not see the betrayal that had nearly destroyed his marriage? Sophia, too, battled with guilt. She had been robbed of her right to choose, violated in a way that had rewritten her family's history. And yet, she loved Ethan with every fiber of her being. He was her son, their son, no matter how he had come into this world. Determined to hold those responsible accountable, David and Sophia took legal action against the hospital. What they uncovered was even darker. A network of unethical fertility practices, families unknowingly raising children who were not biologically their own. Their story made headlines. Their pain became a national conversation. And as they stood before the world, they had to decide, would this tragedy tear them apart, or would they stand together? In the end, the love they had built was tested like never before. But David had learned something through it all. Love is not just about blood. It is not about DNA. It is about choice, commitment, and the willingness to fight for what truly matters. Years later, David watches Ethan grow, his small hands gripping his father's as they walk through a park. The scars of the past remain, but love has prevailed. David looks down at his son, smiling as Ethan laughs, chasing after butterflies. And in that moment, he knows one thing for certain. Ethan may not be his by blood, but he is his son in every way that truly matters. And some bonds are stronger than DNA. Thank you for watching. If enjoyed this story, kindly hit the like button, share and subscribe for more.